Welcome back to On the Money with Ryan Wheelis, founder of Allied Wealth, financial advisor himself. We've been celebrating a bit of the Dow Jones 40,000. I want to talk a little bit about pension plans here in the state of Texas. There's a lot of companies here with pension plans, so do they need to be worried about them? But more so, let's do something. We always like to brush on it every single week. What about the politics of the Dow Jones 40,000? Is this good? Is this good for who's in office right now? Is this because of this president in Congress that this Dow Jones 40,000 just have nothing to do with who's in office right now?
Well, Spike, you got to look at the facts because we do know people out there are thinking to themselves, oh, my God, the market's at a high. It's a presidential election year. You know, I got to get out of the market now and then get back in later, you know, when this thing calms down, all right? And then we have people, Spike, that are also going, hey, you know, I just want a dollar cost average in because it's a presidential election year and the market could crash. Folks, listen, we deal with answering this question often. I mean, it's something we have to, every 4 years. It's a conversation we have over and over again. The bottom line is, if the market's going up in the election year, the incumbent party's replaced. Okay, but usually when a Republican takes over, the market's not down during the election year. It's down in the inauguration year when they actually take office. And on average, when a Republican takes over from a Democrat, going back to 1929, the market's down about 2.7%.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, not a big deal.
Enough, in a Democratic year, okay, the market's usually down slightly in the election year, all right, and then up in the inauguration year. Okay. Now, what's crazy, Spike, is we've got up markets and down markets in the 2 years, depending upon whether Republican or Democrat gets elected, right? But here's the main thing. The difference between the two is 1.1%. So if you average the returns over the election year and the inauguration year for a Democrat taking over for a Republican and then a Republican taking over for a Democrat, the average return difference between those 2 years is 1.1%. So, folks, please listen to me. Do not allow politics to drive investment decisions. What matters the most for politics, okay, or for and market returns is actually the balance of power. What makes up the Senate, the House, what makes that up, and the White House, okay? That's what matters the most. And there's a whole diatribe we could get into on that, but that matters way more than who's in the White House, all right? So, folks, just be mindful of that because I hate to see people making bad decisions and allowing presidential elections to drive their investment decisions, which oftentimes can lead to loss of capital or missed opportunities.
Yeah. Folks, we want to make sure that you're not letting emotions drive your financial decisions, especially your investment decisions. We do realize that Texas, we are here the Hollywood of oil, but let's make sure that you're prepared no matter which way the election cycle goes. Let us take an agnostic look, if you will, at your portfolio. 844-944-7555. You call that phone number, we'll do a no-cost portfolio review, your portfolio x-ray. Because you know what, and I got to throw that in as well. There's a lot of companies here, so I was going to talk about some of the larger Fortune 500 companies that have pension plans, and there are still a bunch here in Texas: ConocoPhillips, Texas Instruments, Southwest, Continental Airlines, CenterPoint Energy. But we also know that a lot of those companies here in Texas will also have stock options. Do you worry sometimes? Do you see this when folks, especially from Texas, come in, they sit down, and we're overly weighted in our company? Does that happen frequently where we're seeing the stock options inside our portfolio? And just because that one's called familiarity bias. And I wonder if we sometimes overweight what we really know and what we're proud of that we do inside our retirement portfolio. Is that a little unsafe?
No, well, good, bad, or indifferent, we see it often. Especially for folks that work at Exxon. Usually our Exxon clients will have a very large, to the tune of sometimes 80% of their 401k allocated to Exxon stock. We see the same thing at Shell, Chevron as well, and sometimes BP and the other companies out there, the other major oil companies. And to that end, Spike, it's served a lot of people really well for a long period of time. I mean, I've got folks that walked out of Deer Park High School, went over to the Baytown refinery at Exxon, and they worked there for 30 or 40 years, and they're blue collar multimillionaires, right? And that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
And they did that by, funding the pension, Exxon doing well with the pension, and also buying the company stock. So is there risk in it? Yes, there is, but there's also irrefutable evidence that it served a lot of people really well. All right. And so you do get a familiarity bias, but a lot of people too think to themselves, Exxon's a great company. They took care of me. They were a good company. I've got a lot of pride and ownership in that company, and I feel that through the ownership of my stock, right? And so, you really have to identify with someone where they are with that, all right? And you can't go in and tell somebody, hey, you got to sell all your Exxon stock. That's you can't do that, because that person has that familiarity bias. They like what the company, they like what they own, they understand it, they worked there for many, many years. So it's one of those things where you got to navigate those waters in a very cautious way. But you also want to understand too that if your pension is there at Exxon, your 401k is there at Exxon, and you're working at Exxon, if something bad were to happen to Exxon, there is risk there. A lot of people understand that risk, and they're okay with taking it. Okay. And so, Spike, it really comes down to identifying which those companies are. You mentioned Southwest, you mentioned Texas Instruments. We work and see those pensions all the time. All right, we work with folks across that spectrum of companies, and we help people navigate these decisions. And some of them too, Spike, are Ryan, what do I do with this pension? Do I take the lump sum? Do I take the payout?
That's a big question. Yeah. What do you do? You built up this wonderful pension.
Sure, and then if you're in a pension situation, okay, you take the payout from the pension from the oil company you work for, but all your money's tied up in the oil company stock. I mean, there's risk in that. So, really what we try to do is help people identify the risks they're taking, talk about the ins and outs of those risks, and find out if the risks are acceptable to them, and how do we navigate those risks going forward, so that if something does happen unforeseen, do we have some things in play out there that can kind of help protect us and help us navigate those difficult waters should they come.
We're gonna have to wrap this up. Great program today. Thanks for your time today, Ryan Wheelis, founder of Allied Wealth, financial advisor yourself. But real quick, last question: does somebody who have a pension, do they need to speak with a financial advisor? I mean, the pension plan, they're going to get money for the rest of their life.
Listen, you can get money for the rest of your life, no problem. It's not inflation adjusted. Make sure that if you put your spouse on there as you put her on there as a beneficiary, or him on there as a beneficiary. Because if you don't put the spouse on as a beneficiary and you die, they're going to wake you up and kill you all over again, okay? Last thing you want to do is evaluate, hey, does it make sense to not put my spouse on there, possibly, and then buy life insurance, okay? Because life insurance costs have come down. So if I die, all right, my spouse gets the life insurance benefit equal to what my lump sum value would have been, all right? So how do we navigate these decisions? Because do I take the payout? Do I take the lump sum and invest it? Do I take the payout and use my 401k funds to grow the for inflation and protect the money from inflationary destruction over time? Do I take the higher amount of money by not putting my spouse on there and buying a life insurance policy? And there's a lot of stuff to navigate there, and you really should look at all those options in great detail before you make that final decision.
Folks, you can give us a call right here, whether you have a pension plan or not. We want to make sure that you get your own portfolio X-ray. Is your money going to last for you all the way throughout your retirement to live the lifestyle that you've always dreamed of? Give us a call. 844-944-7555 is the phone number. Folks are still standing by right now. We'll take your call, schedule an appointment so you can sit down with one of the financial advisors, including Ryan Wheelis himself here, the founder of Allied Wealth. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week. Thanks, Ryan.